Hey, Islanders, and welcome to episode 74 of the Camano Voice. Today I speak with the founder of Bloom's Pharmacy. Please welcome Michael Bloom. Hi, I'm Brandon Erickson, and you're listening to the Camano Voice podcast, where I interview folks around Camano Island and beyond. If you want to stay up to date on events, businesses, and even hear a little history of this area, subscribe to this podcast and share with your friends. Thanks for listening. Hey, Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice, where we release a new episode every Tuesday. And I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. I think that was a couple weeks ago now, so I'm a little late on that. I always forget to look ahead and see exactly when all of these episodes drop. So anyways, hope everyone had a good small Thanksgiving. And as we look forward towards Christmas, hope everyone's getting well prepared for that. Today on the podcast, I have the founder of Bloom's Pharmacy, which later became Mark's Pharmacy, when Mike Bloom, or Michael Bloom, but he goes by Mike, sold it to Mark. So if you remember back to my earlier episode, episode 53, I had Mark Phibbs on and kind of heard his story. But then Mike actually reached out to me and was just actually suggesting some of his brothers, some of his siblings, that he was like, I think you should interview them because they'd be a great interview. And I emailed him back and said, well, yeah, I would love to do that, but actually I'd really be interested in interviewing you because we got to hear Mark's side of the story and how he took over your pharmacy, but I'd really like to hear how you started it. So we got in touch and he said, yeah, I'd love to come on the podcast. So anyways, I got to meet up with him and have a great interview. I love being able to hear kind of the whole story of things. So this is basically the prequel to episode 53 of the Camano Voice. So be sure you check this one out. But anyways, yeah, it was great talking to him. He's been an Islander for a very long time. He actually now lives outside or off of Camano, but grew up on Camano. His family had a lot of roots on Camano. And so anyways, got to hear his journey as a pharmacist and how he started and how he eventually opened Bloom's Pharmacy. So anyways, without further ado, here's my conversation with Michael Bloom. Hey, Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice. Today I'm here with the founder of Bloom's Pharmacy, which later became Mark's Pharmacy. Welcome to the podcast, Michael Bloom.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brandon.
All right, so before we get started, tell us a little bit about Mike.
Okay, I've got four brothers and one sister. I have a son, Patrick, and a daughter, Sarah. I have a son-in-law, Julius, and a daughter-in-law, Cecilia. I have four grandkids. I'm married to Linda. And my parents were Mel and Mary Bloom. My dad was... He was kind of active on Camano Island. He was a fire commissioner, I believe, and he was active in Democratic politics. So he was kind of, I think he was pretty well known out here.
Okay.
But my dad, he would, whenever he'd meet somebody new, he would always tell them, I'm Mel Bloom, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Democrat, and I'm a Norwegian. and I would, whenever you do that, I'd say to myself, it must be great to be able to have your identity, see your identity in such black and white terms, because I never did that. Everything was shades of gray for me. But yeah, he would just smile and he just kept doing it.
Oh, that's great.
And I live in Mukilteo. I've lived in Mukilteo for the last 44 years. But I got a beach cabin up at here on Camano at a place called Monaco Beach.
Okay.
It's on the west side, and it's about a mile north of Cama Beach. And I grew up on a farm in rural Arlington till I was 15 years old. And the farm was on the bank of the Stillaguamish River on the Jordan Road. It was an idyllic place to grow up.
Nice.
Yeah. Our parents, they tried to run a dairy farm, but I guess the farm wasn't that profitable, so my dad saw a little ads for a resort was for sale here on Camano Island, and he thought that he would be a moneymaker for him. And so he bought this Monaco Beach resort. It was 7.5 acres and 300 feet of waterfront. And he rented boats and cabins, and anyway, the farm that I grew up on is now the River Meadows County Park. And that's the place, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's the place where they hold the Stillaguamish tribe holds the festival of the river each year.
Okay.
And my brother Greg and I go each year to hear the music and just to get the feeling of deja vu that we get when we go there. And we just enjoy being in that space.
Very cool.
Like I said, I went to Arlington schools until I was 15, but I got a call one year from somebody that was holding a reunion of the Arlington High School class, and they wanted me to come to the reunion, and I told them, when I moved to Stanwood, I spent my 3 years of high school in Stanwood, and I really couldn't remember a single person. I don't know if it's just me or if that's the way our memories work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Your memories are formed, I guess, when you're that age, and my memories of the people in Arlington just kind of disappeared.
Yep. Yeah.
And let's see. One interesting thing about the River Meadows Park, it's a starting point for a lot of float tubers. They go from they park there and they launch there, and like I say, it's a 100-acre park. And couple years back, my brother Greg and I we said to ourselves, or we've been talking about it, I guess, for a number of years. We said, we're getting old, Greg, and if we're gonna float that river, which we always want to do, we better start thinking about doing it. So one August we got our inner tubes out, and we started off from the River Meadows Park, and about noon on a kind of a warm August day.
Yeah.
And we got about 4 hours later, we were getting cold, and the tubes were losing air, and we realized they were only about halfway to Arlington, and I was getting a little bit nervous, and because we're a long ways from the road. But fortunately, Greg saw a friend of his son's was down by the river bank, and we just paddled over to him, and Greg asked him, "Could you take us back to our car?" And the guy, he had a some kind of vehicle there, and he took us up through the woods, and we got back to our car, and that was the end of our float tube.
Nice.
Yeah, and so, yeah.
Very cool. So, so you said you had 5 siblings. Where are they now?
Let's see. My brother Greg, the brother that's the next youngest one to me, he had a place up on here on Camano. We lived on Camano quite a few years. Before that, he lived in kind of in the Kenmore area, and he worked at Boeing. But he had a place on 5 acres up on the north end of the island here, overlooked Skagit Bay.
Okay.
But he was it bugged him because he couldn't get down to the water, and so him and his wife Mary Ann, they sold their house, and they moved out to Monaco Beach.
Okay.
Where he grew up, and so he's got a beach place there, and he can get to the beach, and that's what he wanted.
Nice.
And my brother Phil is he's a Catholic priest, and he's still active. He's the pastor at the St. Mary of the Valley in Monroe.
Okay.
And we give him a little bit of static because he's the only one of us that's not retired.
Okay.
But he loves it, I know, and he's healthy, and he does a lot for that community.
Nice.
And let's see, my next brother, Lawrence, he lives in Seattle, and my brother Louis lives at Monaco Beach too. He's probably lived there 40 years.
Wow. Okay.
And Louis's got a hobby shellfish farm down at the beach.
Okay.
And he's probably had that for 10 to 15 years, and he's kind of, over the years, he's kind of perfected his skill at growing shellfish.
Mm-hmm.
And so we always have lots of oysters, and that's the main thing he grows. But he's also trying to grow manila clams and gooey ducks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And he'll spend when it's a nice day and it's a fairly low tide where he can get to a shellfish pot, so he'll go down to the beach, and he can spend hours working on them, just shuffling the oysters around. He's found that the better they get water circulation, the better they grow.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
So he provides all of us with fresh oysters all the time.
Nice. I was wondering if you guys profited from that at all.
We did. And my last sibling is my sister Melanie, and she also lives at Monaco Beach.
Okay.
And now she's got 2 kids, and her son Conan, he lives there, and her daughter Tonya lives there, and they live within about 100 yards of her. And it seems like their plan is to kind of take care of us when we age, when we're aging.
Yeah.
So it's nice. It's nice.
That's really cool that the whole family's really stayed together.
Right.
And near, so.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So then, what got you started or interested in pharmacy?
Let's see. I started at Everett Community College.
Okay.
I graduated in 1960, so I started then at Everett Community College, and I was going to be an English teacher.
Okay.
But in the English classes, I never got anything better than a C, and in my science electives, I got A's and B's. So I thought maybe I should rethink this. But one day I was walking through the student union building, and there was the dean of the pharmacy school from the University of Washington had a little booth set up in there, and he was trying to recruit students to come to the University of Washington pharmacy school. And so I stopped and talked to him, and I kind of changed my mind about my career path. And when I the next year I enrolled at the University of Washington and went through the pharmacy school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a pretty big shift there.
It was.
Nice. Very cool. So then, so you studied at UW then. When did you graduate from there then?
1966.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And then where did you start your career then after you graduated?
When I graduated, I got a job at a little chain pharmacy called House of Values. It was down in the headquarters of it was kind of down in the Burien area, but I worked there for a couple of years, and then I think it got bought out by Payless Drugs.
Okay.
And then I worked there. I worked there for a total of 9 years. And yeah, that's where I got started. And let's see. After that, I had a friend that was kind of a pharmacy entrepreneur, and he got me. We formed a partnership, and we bought it. We found a store that was for sale in Montlake Terrace.
Okay.
And we bought the store and ran that. I ran that for 10 years. And the building the store was in had a fire in it.
Oh no.
And after about 10 years, they had a big fire, and the building was not totally destroyed, but it would take about 8 months to, I guess, get back in business.
Wow.
And,
okay.
To get back in business. So then I moved to a different location, Montlake Terrace, and I was there for 10 years in that location. It was on 220th Street in Montlake Terrace.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So the place that you moved to then, was that the same store, or was that a new pharmacy?
It was a new kind of a strip center, and the strip center had more traffic, and it was just kind of a newer part of town.
Okay.
Kind of developing part of town, and it was good. It was a good business, and but at kind of the end of 10 years, the rent, I could see everything that was going on with it. The rent, the competition was getting more intense in the area, and I don't know. I just decided that it wasn't a long-term. It didn't have long-term prospects for me, so I sold the inventory and the prescription files to Payless.
Okay.
Or maybe it was Rite Aid then. It was Rite Aid. I sold it to Rite Aid, and I went to work for them. And I was working there for a couple years. Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like you were kind of going back and forth between like working for like a bigger company and then working on your own, but you kind of flip-flopped back and forth. What were the benefits that you saw or felt for when you were working with like a bigger company versus what were some of the benefits you saw when you were really working on your own?
Well, once I'd been a store owner, it was challenging to work in a big corporate environment, but I could do it. But there was the advantage was it was security. Maybe it was greater, and I would talk to different pharmacists that I was working with in the years that I'd be working at Rite Aid, and I'd say to them, "Have you guys ever thought about opening up your own business someplace?" And with few exceptions, if it was a guy, he would tell me, "Oh no, I'd kind of like to do that, but my wife would never. She would never sign for a loan, or whenever I'd start a business, I'd always have to, guarantee the loan with my house."
Yeah.
And and the guys that I talked to would say their wife would never do that. And my wife, on the other hand, seemed like I would just come up with these ideas, and I would just kind of put legal papers in front of her, and she would sign them. I don't know. She said that I'd ask her later on, why did you do that? And she said, well, I just figured that nobody could worry about the success of a business or work harder on it than Mike. So I just figured it would work out.
Very cool.
She told me.
Nice.
So I was grateful. So I was grateful for that.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I do think actually going back, I interviewed Mark who purchased it from you, and we'll get there as well. But he kind of had a similar experience after running Mark's Pharmacy for a while. Tried to work corporate, and really struggled with it. It sounds like.
Yeah.
It's just a different mindset, and I think
once you're kind of used to making all the decisions connected with the operation of the company, it's difficult to go back to somebody else, making the decisions, and I don't know. It's tough. I mean, anybody that's had their own business of any kind, I think, would have struggles with that. But
yeah.
Sometimes you have to do it, but
right.
It can be done, but it is difficult. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But from a customer interaction, stuff like that, do you still have some autonomy in interacting with customers of when they're picking up their drugs and things like that? Like, you're still interacting with the customers and deciding, like, or at least letting them know, like, things about the medicines and.
Oh yeah. There's a department of there's a pharmacy board that kind of controls what you need to do.
Yeah.
When you're interacting with people about their medicines, especially if they're new medicines for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to follow. You have to follow certain laws.
Yeah.
Yeah. Connected with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, and I think like we've had experiences where like we've gotten looked at medicines and stuff like that when we picked them up or whatever, and like the pharmacist was the one who kind of was like, you shouldn't necessarily be taking this and this at the same time, or things like that, like kind of double checking what the prescriptions were.
Right.
Did you get a lot of that at in either spot?
Yes, I think so. Yes, we did. Yeah, you get questions about that, or people wouldn't ask so much, but I would tell them if it was an important thing to know.
Yeah.
Or I'd seen a problem with it before with the medicine. I would be sure to tell people. Yeah, but I think their doctors maybe give them some instructions too when they write the prescriptions.
Yeah.
But reinforce it if they haven't heard it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So then you were working at Rite Aid then. Where did you go from there? Did you end up leaving there or on your own, or what kind of happened there?
I was working at Rite Aid. I was, coming up to Camano here, I think, to visit my mother, and I saw this little sign, on at the Camano Plaza that said new shopping center, and there was a number to call there, and so I took the number down, called, and I talked to Tyler Meyer's dad.
Okay.
I think he was still involved in the business then, and I got to talking to him, and he said, I told him I was interested in maybe starting a pharmacy business there. He said they had done some studies, and it showed that people really wanted a pharmacy out here in Camano.
Yeah.
And he said that he had owned a pharmacy before and hired somebody to operate it. And he said he never explained it why, but he said it was an experience he would never do it again. And so I told him, well, I was interested in it, and so I kind of talked to some of my friends that had owned drugstores at the time and told them what the area was like, how far away the doctors were, how many people lived on Camano and stuff, and if they thought it was thought it could be profitable to be out here. And I think at the time there was about 15,000 people living on Camano.
Okay.
And a couple of my friends said that was enough people to support a small pharmacy. And so I talked to my wife again. I put the loan papers out in front of her, and she signed them, and I got I started. I signed a lease there, and when the building was completed, well, I started in business, and the kind of a little bit of an odd thing about it. The first 6 months I was there I was open just Monday through Friday.
Okay.
And I felt like I needed some extra money. I needed money coming in, so I kept my job on the weekends at Rite Aid, and so for the first 6 months I was working 7 days a week.
Wow.
Boy. That was, After 6 months, the business kind of picked up.
Okay.
But a lot of people told me that it'll take 6 months to a year before people even realize you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the realtors and other people in business said they can be right across the street from me and never see you.
Yeah.
You're in business. So
yeah,
it just takes that long for people to notice it. So,
right.
Yeah.
So then, when did you actually start the Bloom's Pharmacy then?
Let me think. It was let's see. Okay. It was about 23 years ago, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
23 years ago. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, and the pharmacy really. I expected it to be kind of a pokey little retirement type business.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be anything but that. I was so shocked at how much business I had. I had really twice as much as I thought I would have, and it was way more profitable than any pharmacy that I'd run before.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was of course happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, real happy. but I was just real surprised, and but things went really good there, and business-wise, and I'm grateful to the people on Camano for supporting me. A lot of people, I attributed it to the fact that I grew up on the island. I had some people that knew me from there, and a lot of people knew my dad, and they would come into the store and say, "I knew your dad," and they would tell me stories about him, like he said your dad would. He would always show up. He called it his trap line, and he would drive around to different businesses, and he would just he called it BS with the guys that were in the business, and he said we could almost set our clocks by him by the what time he showed up. And I'd listen to these stories about him, and I'd think, oh my God, they're talking about my dad. It's something I would never in a million years consider doing, and yet they're talking about my dad here. So I don't know, but a lot of guys told me that about stories about him, and and people knew the name too, so that helped.
Yeah.
That helped. Yeah.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you, when you were getting started with those first 6 months and first year, how did you start growing the business? How did you start letting people know and stuff like that?
I would advertise in the local papers. Let me think. What else did I do? Let's see. I think one of my customers, he was on the board of the Camano Center, and he asked me if I wanted to be a board member on the at the Camano Center, and I said I would. And so I think, just from having contacts like that, getting to know people,
Mm-hmm.
and that helped.
Yeah.
I think it did. And it was a location where there was quite a bit of traffic because of that grocery store.
Yeah.
So people certainly would eventually see your location and maybe say, well, this is closer than driving to Stanwood, so I'll shop here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, and they're probably going to the plaza already to go get their groceries, so it's nice to be able to hit all of your stops in one spot.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So then, how long did you own and operate Bloom's Pharmacy then?
I owned it for 10 years, and let's see, age 55 to 65. And when I got to 65, I got to thinking maybe I should start thinking about some kind of transition here, because it was if I wasn't there, the pharmacy was it would fail.
Right.
It would fail because I had to be there, and I got to thinking, well, so far I've been lucky, so nothing's gone wrong with me health-wise, and so but it was in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
And one time, just unexpectedly to me, Mark was a customer. You want to talk about that now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark was a customer at my store, and I'd also known him from Mukilteo because he worked in a Everett Clinic pharmacy in Mukilteo, and that's where I went to my doctor. So I would see him.
Oh, okay.
I would see him in there, and I worked at the Rite Aid in Mukilteo, and so I'd talk to him on the phone from time to time. So I got to know him that way, and then he moved to Camano, and then he was a customer in my store. Well, one night he walked in when I was closing up. He said, I want to talk to you. And I said, okay, yeah, let me close up here and we'll talk. And so, yeah, it was out of the blue. I didn't expect it at all. But he said if I was considering retiring and selling my store, well, to consider him as a buyer. And I told him, oh man, I'll think about it for a couple months.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to I talked to some of my other friends that were pharmacists, and a couple of them told me, boy, an offer like this, it doesn't come along every day.
Yeah.
So somebody just walk in and say, I want to buy your business.
Right.
And so, after a couple months, I just decided that I'd show Mark, all my tax returns and business records and stuff, and see if he still wanted to do it, and he did.
Nice.
Uh-huh.
Very cool. So then, how long did that process take for you guys, start to finish? Was it over a couple years of like working out things and talking, or?
I think it was. I think it was more like months.
Oh wow! Okay.
I think it took us more like months. Mark. See, he got the money together. I guess he got a loan.
Yeah.
He went into debt for that, and anyway, he paid me for the business, and then let's see, we had to do some legal things like transfer licenses
Right.
and stuff like that, and Mark, I think you asked in this questionnaire, like how long was the transition, and how long, actually, I only remember working with him a couple days,
Okay.
and then I was telling people, I'm going to retire, and I remember a couple of older guys, they told me, I don't like this, I don't like what you're doing. I said, but I want to retire. So so anyway, I was in there working a couple of days with Mark, and so get him acquainted with my employees, and then I left.
Wow.
From then, I just left. Yeah.
So what was that like? I mean, it sounds like that's a pretty, that's a really fast turnaround, but it's even faster if you think about that you have this idea that you're going to be working for, quite a bit longer before you retire and that. And all of a sudden, within months of that, to suddenly be retired, what was that like for you? And then what was kind of your plan going forward?
The retirement is a milestone event.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, it is, especially for some people, it's hard. For me, I really, really liked what I was doing. I really enjoyed it, but I wanted to do other things, spend more time with my wife, and just not be responsible for the operation of a business every day.
Right.
But after a couple of months, it was, you're sitting there kind of looking at your computer screen thinking, well, yeah, this isn't it's okay and stuff. Well, okay, but in my house I had my own room, and I would tell other guys that were going to retire or were retired, get your own room, your own computer, your own records, your own everything, and get it where your wife doesn't have to walk someplace where she doesn't have to walk through a room to see you kind of sitting there reading the newspaper, and and kind of giving you, what are you doing today? Look,
right,
or something like that. So anyway, I took over my daughter's room. Yeah, she was married at the time. I remember she said to me, well, she said to her husband, I told her I was taking over her room, that she said to her husband, well, I guess I won't need that room anymore, right, honey? Right, honey?
What every husband wants to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So what are kind of some of the things you've gotten to do since being retired then?
Well, let's see. What I do now is I glean for the Edmonds Food Bank
Okay.
two days a week. I drive a van around and pick up donated food that food that they're going to donate to they donate to the food bank.
Yeah.
And let me think. Other days, I listen to my podcast, like I told you in the pre-interview, that I got a little iPod and I listen to podcasts. So I only do it when I call it being horizontal, when I'm laying down in bed. Usually
Okay.
That's when I do it. But I haven't missed a single night for the last 10 years
Okay.
of doing that. So That's it's real relaxing and I find it real enjoyable.
Yeah.
My daughter loves podcasts too, and so she got me started on it. But I've told some of my contemporaries about it, about this little hobby, and really they just give me a blank stare. Yeah, yeah. But I do have a few converts, people that have picked it up and do it.
Nice.
So
Very cool.
yeah.
So I want to actually kind of switch a little bit because you were in the pharmacy business and saw a lot of things like flu season, cold season, and I know they're not exactly comparable, but kind of looking at the current state of like COVID and stuff like that. What are your general thoughts of like what you kind of think is going to be like how it's going to progress and kind of where we are now?
Well, I don't think we're going to get out of it until we get a good vaccine. It's, I don't think we're doing that great controlling it. I mean, we're doing good, but boy, the thing seems to be so contagious that, even though there's quite a few people that have had it and probably are immune to it now, there's it's growing. It seems like what I hear and what everybody hears that it's growing, and but I do see, like everybody does, I see a vaccine right around the corner. I think as soon as that happens, well, yeah, we're gonna be really, really in good shape. Yeah, we'll be, the country will be in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, as a pharmacist, are you aware of like vaccine trials and all of that stuff? Like, do the companies reach out to you and be like, hey, we're working on this new vaccine, it's coming down the line, we're probably this far out? Do you guys get contacted by any of that stuff, or does that just kind of show up as...
They might do it because they've talked a lot about the pharmacies were going to be doing a lot of the vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I don't know if they're really contacting the pharmacies, but I mean they could be. They could be starting to set up a structure for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and talking about different vaccines, how you'd have to handle them, store them, and if you have to give more than once and all this, it could be happening.
Yeah.
I don't know that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's been something we've been, obviously everyone's aware of and watching of is, where it's at, how is it moving forward, stuff like that. I've heard different, through headlines of reading articles of like people that have maybe possibly like they confirmed that they got it twice and things like that. Does that seem like that's more like an outlier thing, or do you think that could be a pattern that this has?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just maybe they didn't have they had a real light case of it, or I don't know why.
Yeah.
They'd catch it again unless they just got a massive exposure again, maybe that caused them to cause their immune system to be overwhelmed and catch it again. I don't know.
Right.
Uh-huh.
That kind of seems like, because it's one of those things, headline articles, they're always trying to throw out like, but guess what? And so I felt like that's probably more of an outlier than the norm, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm not a doctor or pharmacist, so I was just kind of curious on that.
Yeah.
So, very good. All right. Well, I'd like to end every podcast with some rapid fire questions. The first one is, what purchase of $100 or less have you enjoyed the most over the last 3 months?
I have a glass fly boat, 17.5-foot boat, and it's a kind of a famous Northwest brand, and I've had it since 1981. And probably in all that time, I've had the same lights, trailer lights, and wiring on it, and I had it all, the lights, the wiring all spliced together, and the lights didn't work half the time. my wife would be real irritated by it. And so anyway, I bought some new lights for it, and I decided to let Camano Marine put the wiring in, and so that's where I store the boat in the wintertime too, is at Camano Marine. So,
Okay.
So I'm real happy with that purchase.
Nice. Very cool. Pretend you have a friend coming from out of town. What would their first day look like here?
Yeah, when I have people come here, I take them. I usually try to take them to the state park. I take them to the Camano Hills housing area. I think it's real beautiful up there, with the beautiful views. And I like to drive them down through Driftwood Shores.
Okay.
Driftwood Shores is, yeah.
Nice.
Let's see. Before we finish the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could I tell you, okay, we were talking about COVID.
Yeah.
And I think for grandparents like me, it's and my wife, it's really hard, because maybe we don't get to see our grandkids as much.
Yeah.
And last on Halloween, my wife kind of hit a wall on that, because she's so used to spending the Halloween with one or the other sets of grandkids, and maybe both sets at the same time. And she was almost weepy, and she was talking to me about how she was feeling so blue. And she said it must have made an impact on me, because I picked up on it, what she was kind of telling me, and because I was reading the newspaper, and she said Mike must have really picked up on how serious it was for her, because I put the newspaper down and started listening to her. But one thing else, okay, my daughter-in-law Cecilia, she came up with a way that we could spend a block of time with our grandkids this summer. And what she did was she had all 4 kids tested, and then she isolated with all 4 of them by herself at our beach cabin. And the kids are they range in age from 7 to 12.
Okay.
So they were there for 2 weeks with her, and she said, okay, if we get the coronavirus, we're not going to get it from our grandkids now. You're not, because so then Linda and I came after that, and we had 2 weeks with the grandkids.
Oh.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, we could take them in the boat over to Coopville, like we like to do, and take them tubing, and just be with them for 2 weeks. It was great, and it kind of kept us going. And let me think, what else was I going to tell you? Let's see, it's all about that. And I want to tell you a little bit about living on Camano when we first moved out here to the resort. If you got time.
Yeah, no,
okay.
for sure.
There was a bunch of resorts out here. There was, I think I wrote down Mabana Beach, Cama Beach, Monaco, Sunset Beach, Madrona Beach, Camp Lagoon, Camp Grande, Maple Grove, Tyee Beach, and Indian Beach. All of them operating, renting boats and renting cabins, and all of them were thriving. And the fishing at that time was it was different than now, because we could get out in the water and we could catch true cod, Pacific cod, rockfish, salmon, sole, and smelt, and all those are in short supply now. I'm not sure why, but we had remember the customers at a resort, they would all they seemed to care about was the salmon fishing, the clam digging, and I don't remember anybody caring about crabbing at all.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't. Nobody had crab pots. I never saw anybody catch crab. We didn't know anything about catching crab. Nobody did it. And I think the reason all the resorts failed, well, at least a theory we had was that, or people have, is that when the freeways went in in the early 60s, people, they no longer wanted to come to resorts. They wanted to they wanted to own their own property.
Yeah.
They didn't care because all the resorts failed at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, my parents, how they had the 7 acres, and my dad divided it up into lots, and he sold the lots off over the years.
Okay.
To kind of help with the income for them. Yeah. So.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess I didn't, like, I know we have like kind of like mini resorts or like places you can stay now, like on Camano Beach and stuff.
Yeah.
But I wasn't aware of all the different resorts we had prior to that.
Yeah, and I want to tell you something about Camano Beach too. When I was growing up, I worked for Mrs. Stradley, who was Muriel Riss's mother. I worked taking care of her garden area. But Muriel was so protective of that 400 acres and a mile of waterfront that she owned that she was kind of legendary in that regards. But I think all of us hold a great deal of gratitude for what she did, taking care of all that property. And her daughters eventually arranged to leave it to the state as a park. But one story about how protective she was, one of my brothers and I were out in a boat, and we decided that the fishing would be better down in front of Camano Beach. So we went down there and we kind of anchored right off the beach. And the Muriel came out, and she knew who we were.
Yeah.
And she yelled at us to get away from her beach. And I remember we were perplexed because we knew that when you're on the water, you can fish any place you want, but we moved anyway.
Didn't want to take chances.
No, we wanted to take chances. That's right. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Very cool. All right. Who is an interesting or fascinating person in this community that I should interview next?
Well, I'd like you to see if you could interview my brother Phil, Father Phil, and also Myrna Corcoran. Do you know who she is?
That sounds very familiar.
She's the director of the Camano Center Duplicate Bridge Club.
Okay.
And my brother Greg and I play there every week, every Thursday, until the COVID came.
Yep.
We couldn't play in such close quarters anymore. But she has been the director of the Duplicate Bridge Club for I don't know, I'll bet you 15 years or longer. So I think she'd be a great interview.
Okay.
We do.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. And lastly, if you could have a message on a billboard on Camano Island right as you're driving on, what would that say?
I would say Camano Island, enjoy our scenic roads, our public beaches, and our fresh air.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
You're welcome.
All right.
Enjoyed it.
And Islanders, I will talk to you on the next one. Well, a big thank you to Mike for joining me on the podcast today, and thank you for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us be found by other islanders like yourself. And for more information on this episode, you can go to CamanoCommons.com/EP74. That's CamanoCommons.com/EP74. Thanks for listening and see you next time.